Zimbabwe is one unique country. Our country is endowed with both natural and man-made attractions, such as Mosi-otunya, the Matopo Hills, and the Great Zimbabwe Monuments. We have wildlife at Mana Pools, Hwange and Gonerejo National Parks. Are you like me who only found out a couple of years ago that there's a beach in Binga along the Zambezi River? If you like the lush green terrain, there's the Burma Valley in Vumba and the Inyanga Mountains, among other breathtaking peaks in the Eastern Highlands. I second the notion that we, the people, are the greatest asset this country has. Our friendly faces, fathers with bellowing laughter, burgeoning youth, ululating mothers, tetes and gogos, unozole. Over the last couple of years, we have received numerous endorsements from reputable international media organizations such as CNN Travel, National Geographic, Fortune Magazine, Lonely Planet, Wanderlust Travel Magazine from the United Kingdom, and ABC Broadcasting from America. This is all brilliant marketing and PR for us. And do you know how many people have snuck in privately, some publicly, into our country just to enjoy our country? Oprah Winfrey, Richard Branson, Michael Jackson, Prince Harry. Okay, the list is endless, even Steve Harvey. So here we are with a country that has had significant boosts in tourism from all this, and industry has contributed to at least 1.3 billion United States per annum. In 2018, our tourism was picking up good. We had 2.6 million visitors, and in 2019, slightly less at 2.5 million. Then, COVID. All borders were closed, no travel. Not even for us locals. So, with this setback, where are we now? We need to move strategically and put in place systems and processes that help tourism diversify. Vic Falls can't only be the only attraction the country offers. We have a diverse culture and a rich heritage from the Ndebele, Sotho, Shangani, Venda, Ndau, Manyika, Zezuru, Kalanga, Buja, Tonga. The list is endless. Our environment in its richness has had many stresses. We've been slowly decapitating our forests through unsustainable farming and negligent industrial business practices. Pollution of our water bodies cause grave harm to the ecosystem. We will require more chemicals to treat our water, meaning tap water will end up inconsumable with more chemical doses. Poachers. While we have done a solid job in managing poaching, our wildlife is not completely safe. As we celebrate a tobacco bumper harvest, there is the great amount of deforestation that occurs to cure that tobacco. So we need laws that help with the restoration of our forests. Sitting in the middle of the world's biggest carbon emitters, Africa gets the most severe effects of climate change and global warming. The government developed a tourism recovery and growth strategy, which seeks to revive and grow the tourism sector in line with Vision 2030. Under the Industrial Tourism Recovery and Growth Strategy and the National Development Strategy 1, NDS1, the government had been targeting the sector's growth to attain $5 billion by 2025. Our guest today is the Minister of Environment, Climate, Tourism and the Hospitality Industry, Honorable Mangaliso Ndlovu. The Minister of Environment, Climate, Tourism and the Hospitality Industry, Honorable Mangaliso Ndlovu. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us. Honorable Minister, what is the state of tourism in Zimbabwe today?
Oh yeah, our tourism have gone through rough patches. I think 2020 tops the list, mainly because of the international travel restrictions, but also our own localized lockdowns, which really were meant to enable us to fight the virus. So we lost quite a lot, like I said. We believe close to $1 billion in potential revenue. We lost jobs, especially within the restaurants and the catering industry. We have a lot of contract employees, and there is almost no job security to talk of there. When the numbers are low, they are laid off. So it's something that we've been battling with. Suffice to say that when we started promoting domestic tourism, after we launched our tourism recovery and growth strategy in August last year, when the president launched it in Vic Falls, we have seen also the shift in terms of focus from the tourism players into domestic tourism. I visited a place in Hwange last year. These guys have got some camps there that they are leasing from Forestry Commission. They told me, Minister, I've been here for 21 years. I've never hosted a local person. I've only started this year. It was towards the end of 2020. It's been a wake-up call, and that's why we want to intensify our domestic tourism campaign, because it will save our tourism industry in times of difficulties.
Globally, I believe we're looking at about $6 trillion have been lost in tourism globally. What are the figures for Zimbabwe?
So it's not very easy to tell the figures. What we then tend to rely on, it's mostly on the revenues from the previous year, and we try to extrapolate what we could have received. So we have said roughly we believe in terms of potential revenue, we lost close to $1 billion. We believe it's more than that. I always say that our tourism figures are undervalued substantially, because how people would calculate revenue from tourism is that when Ruvenako visits Zambia, whatever spending that you do, be it in a shop, in a salon, they aggregate that, and it is all attributed to tourism. It's not just your hotel stay. Right. We don't have that mechanism now. It's something that we are working on. So I believe that our losses are much higher, but conservatively, it's around $1 billion.
What's in our control right now regards travel and tourism is the domestic tourism sector. Now, one issue that was very big a few years ago was how locals were complaining that they can't even enjoy their country because of the cost, them having to travel, and then the pricing at hotels and bars and all of that, and restaurants. Have we managed to convince the bulk of the tourism sector to now have a two-tier pricing system that encourages locals to travel and have a what do we call it, a discounted price for being a Zimbabwean national and showing their ID?
Tell you what, that's a national question that we all have to engage in. We have, as government, tried our best. We got relief from Treasury for domestic tourists. All those who are visiting, be it accommodation or activities, ordinarily the VAT component is waived. But when we were discussing with the players, again, there is a need to interrogate that. There is an aspect of input, output VAT. It looks like it's very difficult to pass on the benefit to the visiting public. But we have a team that is already working on it. I think I'm expecting feedback next week, Monday, so that we engage Treasury just to fine-tune it a bit. Our view is that this should benefit the visiting public, not the players per se. But I saw in December, people wanted to have visitors come in. There were huge discounts, and I must say, for once, the feedback that I was getting from a number of people from Kariba, Vic Falls, Inyanga, is that their occupancies were upwards of 65%, which was quite good. Of course, unfortunately, then we had a spike end of December leading to January.
Getting into weather and climate, okay? Before we get to climate change in itself, looking at the state of our Met departments, right, across the country, we have had inaccurate reporting, and we have a situation where the equipment that they're using is completely outdated. What are you doing about that?
Thank you so much. I always say to my team that our Met department is probably the most important. Because if we have an up-to-date, efficient Met department, then we have proper early warning systems. We are able to save lives. We have lost lives in instances where I believe we could have done something if we had adequate information, especially for our civil protection unit. I think for a long time, the Met department didn't get the attention that we should have given them. And we have started now, I remember when I was in Kariba, they couldn't attend to a simple fault because they didn't have a vehicle. And that fault generated into a big problem. So what we have done from government side is that we have asked the Treasury to commit resources, and I'm happy that we are making strides. We have some radars that are coming through. 10 vehicles have been procured. We are waiting for delivery. We also work quite closely with international institutions, and we are expecting some commitment very soon. I believe that by end of the first half, we should have, I think, improved our delivery.
You talked about understating of figures in the beginning, but again, something that's also understated is the number of elephants that we actually do have. I don't know why there was a whole international hullabaloo about how many elephants Zimbabwe still has. Meanwhile, we have to go through a culling process very soon, I believe, because we are completely oversubscribed. We just don't have enough hectarage to continue with the amount of elephants that we have inland. So let's talk through that. I know that's a very big, hurdle that you're facing, and it's immediate and it's urgent. How are you going to roll this out?
It's unfortunate that there are people out there who believe they are big brothers to everyone. I've watched recent weeks, I think the last 2 weeks, a lot of talk around 500 elephants. Here is the reality. The reality is that Hwange National Park has a carrying capacity of 15,000 elephants. Currently, they are sitting at more than 45. I believe it's more than 50,000 elephants. You visit Hwange on any day, and it's a sorry sight. The rate at which the habitat is getting destroyed. There is a country, I won't mention names, that delayed dealing with this problem until it got to a point where elephants died in massive numbers due to starvation, loss of habitat. We are not far from that. You go to Gonarejo, again, their carrying capacity is somewhere around 5,000. Right. They are sitting at between 15 and 18,000 elephants. So the numbers are crazy. And you hear people talking, excuse me, I'll say it's rubbish. Because from around 1989, CITES gives Zimbabwe a quota of 500 elephants for hunting. We've never reached that number ever since. And this is an annual thing. Every year, this is approved. And you can only get that quota if you have complied with all the statutes within CITES. So I don't know why suddenly it's become an issue.
So let's talk about the culling process and educate us here. What does culling actually involve? I mean, we need to basically get rid of, so to speak, elephants. How are we going to do this?
So we can only get to that conclusion after a thorough scientific process has gone through the study to see. We believe that our elephants are growing at a marginally higher rate than elephants in the region. Why is that? It's difficult to tell, but we believe there is the comfort of non-poaching. Culling, yes, involves targeting mostly the productive generation. We take them down in good numbers so that we slow down the rate of growth. But that's not a decision that's taken yet.
I understand that for a hunting license, I don't know the correct terminology, you can help me, but someone can fly in, right, who has the resources, because internationally hunting is a sport, okay? So some will fly into Zimbabwe on their private jet, and then to procure this license, they need about $50,000. Why not open up to that and use this as part of that? I don't know if it's something that's considerable.
Well, those who come in to do the hunting ordinarily would be invited by someone who is holding a hunting license locally. So in most cases, we have locals who get the licenses from national parks. Right. But this is what is being fought internationally, and strongly so. The hunting industry is being fought by some governments, but mostly by these animal rights groups, because they know that through hunting, most of these countries are able to sustain their conservation. We don't need donor support per se. And they are not giving alternatives. The ultimate goal is conservation. So someone who would say hunting is cruel, which I don't know what they mean by that. And our argument has always been that in all the areas where there is hunting. It's not everywhere. We have places which are safari. We don't do hunting in a national park because that's an incubation area. Where we have hunting, we have amazing successes in conservation. In fact, almost every 2 to 3 years, they are offloading excess animals because they are able to commit resources into conservation. They have their rangers or scouts that are well taken care of. They have up-to-date, sophisticated anti-poaching equipment. And we know that it's not because they are ignorant, these people are making noise. It's what they are not comfortable with. They want a situation where Zimbabwe perennially begs for assistance when we have our own resources. I mean, we have in our stocks ivory that can
600 million, I believe.
thereabout.
Million or trillion?
Yeah, million.
600 million stockpiles of ivory.
Yeah. And they have fought to stop us from benefiting from that. Yet it's very expensive to keep that.
I was going to say, let's just start from, okay, $600 million worth of ivory is a lot.
In my vault there.
Okay, in your vault. So I was going to ask, firstly, is it safe? Because not just in your ministry, where I believe there is something called soft corruption, okay? In a country like Zimbabwe, where we are aggressively fighting corruption, putting up commissions to make sure that corruption stops, it has been something and a parasite that's been eating our country for years. You sitting on 600 million of ivory, are you sure it's still 600 million?
So we have a very strict system through CITES where the reporting is done annually. These are coded, computer coded in every shelf. It's not very easy to interfere with that system. And the first institution to make noise, if there are problems, there will be CITES.
But it doesn't make sense, yes, because what you would say in your defense, right? Because I believe this stockpile is accumulation of poached animals that have been seized, right? As well as just animals that die naturally for whatever reasons out in the wilderness. So if you're going to say, look, we're going to start a fund for the ivory that we sell, and it's going back toward conservation, it's going back toward the environment, it's going back toward fighting climate change, for example, why would they stop you from doing that?
You will never get a scientific argument from this. That's why I said generally the whole objective is to see these countries who are doing well in conservation continuing to beg. We have looked at specific examples. Rhino trading in rhino horn has been banned, I think it's more than 60 years now. Rhino poaching has never stopped. So the banning of trade has no relationship with poaching. The trade in ivory, again, has been banned, but there are countries where it's been banned longer and poaching has continued. Poaching is not related. In fact, what it does is it reduces the ability of the authority like Zimpax to do anti-poaching because you are constraining them from benefiting through these things. So we have a lot of elephants that are dying through natural attrition and the like. And these ordinarily should plow back to conservation to save the growing ones. But you should attend these CITES meetings. We used to be Zimbabwe standing against the world. I'm happy in the last CITES, which I attended in Switzerland, it was the whole region, SADC region. We even had to put a reservation as a block that in terms of our elephants, we will have to put a reservation. We'll do it our own.
The alluvial mining, right? This is something that you have recently prohibited.
From practice, we have observed that it is disturbing the river systems. And when you disturb the river systems, you are affecting the whole ecosystem. Communities tend to suffer. We know we have a burden to desilt our rivers. I think in the region, we probably compare quite badly with others. We have widely silted rivers. And it doesn't help us in terms of our ability to then store water. So we need to balance the need to desilt, at the same time preventing or avoiding people from mining in rivers. We have seen some of the rivers like Mazoe, a dam, it struggled to get the water levels that we would have expected because downstream there were problems with mining, which perhaps we took some bit of time to rectify. But moving on, we will be emphasizing more on sustainable exploitation of resources. We don't want a situation where we'll have investors come in here, make a lot of money, but leave the burden and the legacy of correcting environmental issues with communities. And I'm quite happy that working with the Ministry of Mines, we have made strides. It will be almost impossible to renew your mining license if your mining practices are environmentally unsustainable.
Right.
So there is a prerequisite that you would need to have passed a certain environmental assessment test every year.
Minister, on corruption, when you talk of mining, can't separate that word from it, very easily. Before you, and before even the new dispensation, there was a lot of corruption in this particular ministry, where some people in your ministry that work there were known to give licenses to specific people, right? Because there's ways in which everything happens, whether it's your license for hunting, whatever it is that you're trying to do. Have you managed to sift through the corruption in your own ministry? Because the processes are being stifled by the corrupt officials. So what have you done in-house?
Sometimes as Zimbabweans, we talk a lot about corruption and in most instances without adequate proof on the ground. Okay. I've seen a few instances where there were investigations that were done, and I wouldn't classify those results as an indication of an inherently corrupt system within the ministry. But there were, of course, instances where people behaved irregularly and in some instances corruptly. The solution, in my view, to this, beyond the obvious setting up of institutions that are fighting corruption every day, is to make sure that you have waterproof systems that are not easily manipulated, where you do not give officers a lot of room to make decisions. There has to be checks and balances within the system. I'm happy to say, national parks, for instance, where we have a lot of licensing, is digitalizing. By mid-year, I think all their systems will be computerized.
Let's get into deforestation. Last year, the ministry said they were going to plant 5 million trees. Did you plant them?
Oh, yes. We actually surpassed that, and I'm excited about it. We did just over 10 million. The good rainy season helped a lot, and the momentum has also been carried into this year. So normally it also becomes a deciding factor, because when you're planting, especially in the forest, like the allied timbers, and a new program that we have started on the tobacco side, you would want to count on the humidity, natural humidity, where you cannot supplement with watering yourself. But we are very ambitious. We are targeting to do 20 million this year. We want to get to a point where we are not only planting more than we are cutting, but we are also addressing legacy issues. We've been cutting trees unsustainably, if I may say, especially in the tobacco growing provinces. It's been very bad. And we came up with a program which I launched last year, which is called the Tobacco Wood Energy Program, TWEP, where we are planting exotic trees that are maturing. They will need between 12 and 18 years. You can harvest for tobacco curing. Instead of cutting an indigenous tree that has been there for 300 years, to get a tree to that level, it's how many generations? There are provinces where they can hardly find a tree to cut. They are now moving to other districts to look for that. And we want to provide a solution.
What is the short-term solution? You talk about planting in, exotic trees that'll grow over 12 to 18 years. What about right now?
I'm afraid we have limited options. Coal becomes unsustainably high as a cost. They have tried it. It didn't work. We have also encouraged the use of renewable energy, biogas. It's not gaining traction, but we will be putting more penalties on people who are cutting indigenous trees.
And speaking of long-term vision as well, we've got this big climate change problem where the biggest emissions are coming from China on our right, and then the West on our left. And as Africa, this continent is suffering the most. Electric cars. Okay, is this something that you feel we can include into our day-to-day life? There has been a ban on the import of cars, slowing that down. We know our local car manufacturers, the assembly plants, can they be, do they have the capacity, and can they be expected to begin assembling electric cars?
When people talk of climate change and also maybe fourth industrial revolution, people talk of disruptions in terms of our normal days. In my view, normal way of life, I believe there are numerous opportunities that are coming out of that. New jobs will be created, and our automobile industry should be looking at opportunities there and riding and being right ahead. If you look at our country, we even have minerals or resources that we can use to manufacture batteries. They should be looking at positioning themselves to be the global, if not regional, supplier of these. But speaking of climate change and the biggest emitters in the world, we have opportunities that we are looking at best ways of tapping into. We believe that we have some of the best carbon sequestration potential, or carbon sequestration in general, in the world as a country, because of our forest cover as well as our wetlands. And there is what we call carbon credit trading. So it's a system that is being designed within the climate change platforms, where a company that is emitting gases can invest or purchase carbon credits from a country that has forests, because carbon emissions or climate change has no boundary. What is emitted in China can be sequestrated in the US, in Zimbabwe, so to speak. So we want to empower countries like Zimbabwe to continue with their sustainable forest management, but also penalizing the companies that are biggest emitters, so that they emit less if they want to spend less on their mitigatory measures. So this is something that we are working on. There are good offers. We believe that we might get some resources that might also assist our communities on climate adaptation.
And on that, ultimately plant more trees.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Most definitely, yeah.
Thank you. We have unlimited goodness to boast about our country. Tell me where you'll get a better climate than this all year round. I mean, winter's creeping in, yes, but in about 8 weeks, the worst of it will be over. It's easy to hoot through rush hour traffic instead of appreciate the sunset in front of you. It comes without a second thought. For some to toss an empty packet out the window, but for whom to pick up? No, you're not creating employment. You're disrespecting your land and trashing a shared living space that doesn't belong only to you, but to your fellow citizens who happen to call this place home. Stop doing that. Take a drive out with the kids. Show them something they've never seen before, a waterfall with their DNA, or their totem walking to a waterhole, not hanging on a photo in the living room wall. Let's preserve what no one can take away from us. Let's cherish the best parts of us. Our country is beautiful. Nyika yedu yakanaka. Ilizwe letu liyababaza.